We've always circulated ghost stories amongst the staff here or performers, and we've never really had the opportunity to open up these stories to the public to hear. Like pretty much everywhere else, we had to close down in mid-March because of the pandemic. We have so many people who are so eager to be back in our spaces that this is the time to do ghost tours for spooky season here in October.
So right this way.
For years, a lot of our security staff, tech staff talked about seeing a blue orb up in the balcony. And, you know, we never really had a story to go along with it. But one of our other tour guides, Ashby, he was a performer in a show here a couple of years ago. They were doing a tech rehearsal of the show on stage, and they kept seeing this woman in a blue dress up in the balcony. She would sit down in a seat, and then a few minutes later she'd move to a different seat, and it was becoming very distracting. And so they said something to the stage manager. They just thought it was one of our Blumenthal staff or someone else who was being distracting up in the balcony. The stage manager sent somebody up there, but there was no one up there. And quite a few members of the cast had seen this woman in the blue dress, all had the same description of her. The woman in the blue dress, actually, we think she might be a singer from when this was an old church, and she's just stuck around. I just think it's interesting for people to hear these stories that have kind of become lore in of themselves amongst our staff or the people who have frequented our theaters. It's also really interesting to hear people's reactions to maybe parts of Charlotte that they had never heard of before.
Follow me this way. It is kind of a maze.
A lot of people who may have been in theaters like McGlowan here don't realize how much history is within these walls and within the land itself. And so I think people, you know, like to be scared a little bit, like to get that chill up their spine from the ghost stories. But I also think there's a lot to be derived from just talking about these venues in general and how they fit into the greater Charlotte community. This venue especially is part of the history of this city. And it's really interesting for me personally to kind of show off the interesting parts of the buildings that most people never get to see, and really show you why it's important to maintain these parts of history. And that's so much about what ghost stories are about too. It's a glimpse into the past that has maybe stayed around and seeped into our present. Coming to the theater is an experience that really you can't get anywhere else. It is the connection with the other people in the audience around you, it's the connection with the staff, it's the connection with the performers and the piece itself. Any kind of artwork or performing arts, the pieces themselves are living beings. They change, they're different every time you see them. And I think that's such a special connection to have. And so much of that happens in venues like this one. And I think now it's really important for all of us who love the theater, living and dead, to realize that this is a very difficult time. Things look very, very different, and we are not able to be in these spaces all together, but we have not abandoned the thought of being in these spaces, of experiencing art all together. And this is a way that very, very small groups can return to the theater in a different way and also support the local arts. And at Blumenthal, we also want you to recognize that it's not just supporting us, we also want you to find ways to support other arts and organizations in the city, because there are so many who really need a little bit of support right now.